Hollywood writes for the audience it wants, not the audience it has. Do you know the phrase, the customer is always right? If you've ever, like me, worked in retail, you certainly do, as it was undoubtedly shoved in your face when you refused to let someone use 10% off coupons to get a $5 t-shirt for free. Not only because that's not how math works, but also because it says limit one per customer, and no, good sir, you are not special. But anyways, that's not really what the phrase means. In actuality, it means that the company, the creator of the product, has to accede to the desires of the consumers, not the other way around. If you want to buy a pickup truck and I want to sell you a Segway, you're not going to eventually resign yourself to a life of rolling around town at 6 miles per hour. You're going to head over to the dealership next door and find someone who will sell you what you want. This is a lesson that Hollywood has yet to learn. In the past 5 years or so, the movie and TV industry has churned out one film or show after another that does not remotely meet the desires of the existing audience for its given IP, and sometimes even mocks and belittles them.
Yeah, it's code for adults who still watch cartoons.
This phenomenon is most obvious in the superhero genre, but is also observable in video game adaptations, fantasy, and probably plenty of other instances that I haven't even found yet. This all begs the question, why? Why do the big studios ignore what audiences want and instead allow their writers and showrunners to create stories that don't resonate with audiences, that discard existing lore, and that often do things that I swear are just for the sake of pissing off the existing fans? Hubris, that's why. Hollywood thinks they know best. We don't know what we want, but they do. But you know who does care about what you want? This video's sponsor, NordVPN. The internet is a scary place, but Nord helps you be safer with a single click. Don't like the idea of shadowy figures spying on your internet activity? Simply activate your NordVPN and vanish from prying eyes. Did your favorite YouTube channel get region locked? Nord is available on every major device and allows you to change your location with a single click or tap. Also, malware is everywhere these days. Phishing, QR code scams, DDoS attacks, ransomware. So Nord provides built-in threat protection to shield you from all types of malware while you surf the web. But Nord knows that a VPN is not the only product you need to be safe online, so they also offer NordPass separately for all your password management needs. One of the greatest cyber risks to individuals is having your password stolen, especially if you use the same one for everything because you, like me, can't be bothered to remember 8,000 different passwords. NordPass makes it easy for me to create unique, complex passwords that are stored securely wherever I go, making the process of logging into any given website as simple as it is safe. Best of all, NordVPN knows that you want to try it out before committing, so they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Use my link down below to get NordVPN with a huge discount and 4 extra months for free. Thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to Hollywood. Let's talk about the superhero genre first, because that's where this flaw is most notable. See, for over a decade, from Iron Man to Endgame, basically anything with a spandex-clad protagonist was raking in the big bucks without having to stop to take a breath. Audiences were eating up superhero films faster than studios could pump them out. Captain Marvel brought in over $1 billion at the box office because even if audiences didn't exactly love it, they wanted to be caught up on every aspect of the story leading into the climactic finale of Endgame. So what happened? Superhero fatigue, sure. We can only watch so many origin stories before our eyes roll back in our heads, but there's more to it than that. Prepare yourself for a harsh, brutal truth. Fair warning, all you studio execs and showrunners out there. I know you're not doing any real work right now, so I can only assume that you're plumbing the dregs of YouTube and ended up on my video. So consider this your last warning before I drop this truth bomb on you. It might hurt, but you'll recover in time. Ready? Here we go. The majority of your audience is male, and you should listen to what they want. I know, just pipe down a bit and let me explain. No, wait, that's pretty much it. Look, it's not that complicated. Men and boys account for an easy majority of the viewership of superhero films, and an even larger majority of the passionate fanbase, the ones who read the comics, the ones who will talk about how much they loved the latest installment of whichever superhero is in theaters right now, the ones who will not stop pestering their friends until they've also gone to see it. You disenfranchise these people, you lose a lot of money. Men, by and large, enjoy watching stories about other men, heroes who have to struggle and sacrifice in order to achieve victory, who face down impossible odds but never give up, who are paragons of nobility and virtue and inspire all of us to be better than we are. This is one of the most natural things in the world. It's a simple fact of life. You don't have to like it. You can try to make men watch their heroes be replaced by female versions of themselves. You can argue that they should watch these female heroes. And maybe you can even make some good points in support of that argument. But the fact of the matter is, you simply cannot compel men to watch what they don't want to watch. It doesn't help that most of the new female heroes are underdeveloped and boring, if not outright obnoxious. But even if they were excellently written, it's a tougher hill to climb when you have a female lead. For example, Wonder Woman, despite being a smash hit, ranked below Guardians 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Thor Ragnarok in 2017, despite it arguably being the best of the bunch. And Wonder Woman 1984... Bruh. Yeah, let's forget about that one. None of this is to say that you should cater to the lowest common denominator, that you should just make movies that appeal to the basest of male fantasies. Rather, the point I'm trying to get across is that the decision makers behind these movies got so comfortable raking in cash that they decided they could do whatever the hell they wanted. And what they wanted was more women in leading roles. As many women in leading roles as they could possibly have, overshadowing or even supplanting the male hero if possible. In fact, I'd argue that a large part of the reason that Wonder Woman, the first one, did so well is because Diana didn't shove an aging male hero out of the way in order to establish herself. She was simply her own character. See, when audiences get attached to a character, they tend to resent it when that character is just outright replaced, regardless of whether or not the character is gender swapped. Again, that is incredibly natural. Attachments are not easy things to let go of. It is much easier for us to simply form a new attachment to a new character than to discard our old affinity for our hero and instead love the new one. Hollywood should know this. They should give us new heroes to love. And to give credit to DC, I think they're trying. But the problem is, most of Hollywood is just too comfortable with their existing characters. They are too attached to these money printing machines, so they have convinced themselves that if they just switch a couple of tiny details, like the hero's shape, size, voice, and personality, that audiences will continue feeding the cash cow. Not so much, it turns out. It doesn't matter if you want mostly female heroes, Hollywood. It doesn't seem like your audience does. Especially not the ones written in your usual half-assed manner, and guess what? They're the ones not buying tickets. You don't have to like that. You can complain all you want about sexism, but even if you're somehow right about all of that, Ms. Marvel still only has 7 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. But I don't intend for this video to be all about gender swapping. That is only a piece of Hollywood's rampant, willful ignorance of its audience. We don't have to depart from the superhero genre just yet, though. Let's talk a bit about Ant-Man. I'm willing to admit that I genuinely love the first 2 Ant-Man movies. Oh, they're not cinematic masterpieces, they're goofy and silly, and the plots don't make the most sense, and some of the bad guys are more cartoonish than is typical even for the MCU. But those movies had heart, man. They were about Scott's love for his daughter and his desire to be in her life to provide for her and look out for her, and Hope's overwhelming desire to be reconnected with her long-lost mother. This low-level personal element was what made those movies stand out among the other titles of the MCU that insisted on having grand stakes at every turn. Also, the movies managed to be funny without undercutting every serious moment with humor, something that the rest of the MCU since Guardians 1 has yet to figure out. Paul Rudd was his usual effortlessly charming self, Michael Pena was hilarious as Luis, and the movies were just plain heartwarming and touching. Enter Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, a movie that took everything we loved about the first 2 Ant-Man movies and tossed it out the window while maintaining eye contact with the fans to assure we knew how badly we were being screwed over. Luis and the rest of X-Con, the essential comedy relief, gone. Not in the movie, not even mentioned. Hope? Barely in the movie, despite being a titular character and literally present on screen for a good portion of it, somehow. Cassie, the sweet little girl who loved and trusted her dad more than anything, is now a cynical young adult with a weirdly adjusted sense of social righteousness and a complete lack of gratitude for her dad literally saving the world. But that's not even the worst of it. No, this movie had to go and chuck Ant-Man, of all superheroes, into a multiversal plot that is going to drive the entire storyline of Phase 5. I mean, I think it is. Who even knows what the plot is at this point? Does anyone else think that maybe Ant-Man may not have been the best choice for this movie? You know, the guy who rides on ants as a combat maneuver? Maybe, just maybe. He was the wrong choice for a colossal, epic battle against a guy who can do literally anything to anyone whenever he wants, except when it's the climax of the movie and then he is super limited for no reason. I'm pretty sure that whoever made this movie had no idea why people liked Ant-Man. They just needed an existing hero, because remember, no new ones who aren't at least derivatives of an old one are allowed, to fight their new-ish villain, and they spun the wheel and landed on Ant-Man. And then got people completely unfamiliar with the other 2 movies to write the 3rd one, because really, who gives a shit anymore? Well, maybe they will now. No, who am I kidding? Of course they won't. However, let's not limit this examination of Hollywood's failures to know and respect its audience to the superhero genre. Let's talk Tolkien, or whatever Rings of Power was supposed to be. I swear this show was just created to piss off Tolkien fans. The showrunners are new and inexperienced, and were handed the reins of one of the most recognizable IPs on the planet. Being young creatives, they didn't want to confine themselves to Tolkien's Legendarium, but instead wanted to create their own world, storyline, and characters, which would be all well and good if it didn't mean violating established lore at every turn and demonstrating a complete lack of respect for Professor Tolkien's work. The man spent decades creating Middle-earth and all that is contained within it. Thinking that you can adapt his work with your own significant changes and thus improve it, thinking that fans will enjoy that more, is just sheer hubris. In a way, I kind of feel bad for the creators of shows like this. They likely don't want to adapt someone else's work. Being creative people, I imagine they would prefer to simply write new stories. But studios need their safety blanket of established IPs, so they force them to work within the bounds of an already well-known world. Should the showrunners and writers just suck it up and faithfully adapt the source material, adding little bits and pieces to enhance it when possible, since not everything in a book translates properly to the screen? Yes they should. And if you do it well, you might actually get entrusted with creating a new and unique IP. I don't think you're going to get there, though, if you insist on making every beloved franchise your own, and thus losing your studio millions of dollars because you pissed off the fans. Jackson, for all the many flaws of his films, still managed to capture Tolkien's world and characters beautifully, time after time, when he stuck close to the source material. Is everything about Galadriel and the Fellowship the same in the book and movie? No, but at least her demeanor and bearing are that of the regal, powerful being that Tolkien describes, rather than a 3,400-year-old adolescent who somehow doesn't have the slightest sense of tact or diplomacy. Also, side note, the elves must have found a hairdresser sometime in the latter half of the Second Age, because what on earth am I looking at right now? Get that out of my face, please. That's better. Wait, so who even was the intended audience for Rings of Power? I mean, was Amazon really oblivious to the fact that Tolkien fans are desperately in love with the man's lore and would not be okay with the monstrous changes being made to it? I believe that, yeah, they were that oblivious. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that most high-level decision makers within Amazon and other studios are not exactly tuned into nerd culture. They know that people like Lord of the Rings, and believe that if they sprinkle in a few recognizable names from the Second Age, people will happily slop up the member berries. That certainly seems to have been the strategy of the Halo show. Basically, the only way in which that atrocity was faithful to the game was the little details like the wart of the elites. Paramount seemed to not know what its audience actually wanted, or even who they were. I apologize for this tip coming a few months late, guys, but bear with me here. Your audience is Halo fans, and they wanted the story of the Halo games. I know. Look, Halo 3 was, at the time, the biggest launch of a video game ever. This series is tremendously popular. It has what I can only describe as an absolute buttload of fans. Fans who, I should clarify, do not just love Halo because it allows them to spend hour after hour blasting away at virtual strangers. No, the story and characters of the Halo games, at least until 343 took over, are almost universally beloved. I'm admittedly not the biggest Halo fan. I've played all the campaigns at least once, though, and like most fans of the franchise, I enjoy the character of Master Chief. This dedicated, loyal soldier who bears with him an air of mystery due to his permanently hidden face. So of course, the show had to ruin all of that before the end of the first episode. And look, this scene isn't just bad because John takes off his helmet, where in the games, or at least the Bungie trilogy, it remained on. The problem lies in the writers not understanding Master Chief as a character, wanting to make him something that he simply has never been. They wanted a compassionate, sympathetic main character, instead of the more stoic and devoted Spartan from the games. The problem is, they didn't earn it. If you're going to throw a curveball at your audience, you need to set the groundwork carefully. This moment simply had no build-up. We were told in the first episode, in the very first scene, that Spartans were fanatical, unkillable murder machines who served the UNSC unflinchingly. And then Master Chief offered a teenage girl the chance to kill him because he felt bad for her. Not only is this a terrible adaptation of the character from the games, it's just bad storytelling. The writers didn't remotely earn this reveal. They just wanted his helmet off because reasons. John could, and probably should, have gone through a season's worth of character development, and actually spent a significant amount of time with the person to whom he decides to show his face before he removes his helmet. But nah, we're taking a cheap shortcut because we can't be bothered to figure out how to make the audience connect with a character whose face they've never seen. That's not possible at all. Seriously, did anyone at Paramount Studios even bother to ask the question, what do Halo fans like about Master Chief? Because guess what? Gamers aren't that different from the rest of the population than this broader audience that supposedly exists but never seems to watch anything. If gamers like a character, the general population will likely appreciate that same character at a more or less proportional rate. They just can't be bothered to sit down and play as him. Considering how poorly this and other adaptations have turned out, it seems like the showrunners ask, what can we change to make everyone who's not already a fan like this thing? Assuming that existing fans will lap up the sludge you spew out. As opposed to, how can we adapt this in a way that will please existing fans, while also not requiring everyone else to have a deep knowledge of the game or its lore to understand and appreciate the characters? Nah, no one could possibly pull that off, right? Obviously, the Halo show isn't alone here. I don't have the time, energy, or knowledge to break down the failings of every terrible video game adaptation, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention how Netflix's Resident Evil took a series of horror games and then decided what fans really wanted to see was a teen drama. Great call, guys. That decision, and everyone I've talked about here, can be summed up in one simple question. What the f*** were they thinking? Honestly, it's shocking how out of touch the minds of all these projects seem to be. I'm hesitant to say that the producers, showrunners, and writers hate their audiences, but they certainly don't seem to care about them, about what their viewers may or may not want. You see, my friends, Hollywood knows best. They stand with all the currently popular, morally correct social movements. They know how to reach every living person on the planet with a show created for a niche audience, just by making it more generic, bland, and ordinary. They understand that you don't really want heroes to look up to, you want sad old has-beens to remind you that deep down, everyone sucks. We are so blessed to live in the era of modern entertainment. Thank goodness we have Hollywood to tell us what we want and what is good for us. I don't know what we'd do without them. So, this video turned out a bit more ranty than originally intended. Sometimes you just gotta get something off your chest, you know? Anyhow, I hope you liked it. Let me know what you thought down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.